Hello, welcome back to WJHI for another episode of Coach Struck Talks. I made that name up right now. Here I am today with friend, wrestler, and comedian Greg Warren. Welcome to the show.
Danny, how you doing, man?
Good to have you. I think was listening to you way back in 2004, right after I got out of college, and I heard you on the radio, and I realized in your comedy shticks you were a wrestler.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've tried to be the last guy at your show so that you had to talk to me, and then make you come into my show.
Yeah.
And
pleasure to be here, man.
I'm really excited to have you. I can't really explain. I got two dreams in life: one day to be a good wrestler, and one day to do stand-up comedy. And you already surpassed all my dreams. So I don't know if I set my level of life high enough.
Well, you got a little bit of time left. I think you should be all right.
Yeah. Well, I'd start off because I'm going to have all my high school wrestlers watch this, and this goes into a 4 or 5 county area that probably engulfs 40 high schools. And how'd you get into wrestling?
My dad was he was a high school coach, and he actually started a little league program in St. Louis called Bonham. And I think I probably was like 5 or 6 when I started wrestling for them. I remember going to his practices. He was like a junior high coach, I think, when I was young. And I remember, maybe wrestling with some of the kids or whatever. But, I started wrestling, I guess, competitively when I was 5 or 6, something like that. Yeah.
And how'd your career start? Was it instant winning? Was it?
Yeah. I beat everybody right away. Yeah. Was beating high school kids when I was 6, and then they moved me up to the college level when I was 7, and I lost one, I think, that year. No, I don't know. I was pretty good as
yeah.
I think I was pretty good as I think I was pretty good as a kid. Yeah, I was a coach's kid, so I had a little bit of an advantage. I had a little bit of a technical advantage, and I didn't lose much.
My dad was a high school football coach, and I used to have to get in my stance before school in the morning, which there's not many things you don't want to do with your dad before getting your center stance before school in the morning. I still do it. That's how my wake-up routine.
Oh, is it?
Teeth,
right,
get in my stance, hike a ball. My wife thinks it's awkward.
I sleep in a referee's position. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I sleep in the referee's bottom.
Yeah.
Because it would be awkward to sleep on top without a partner. But I sleep in the bottom, and then when the alarm clock goes up, I do a stand up. Right.
Straight out of bed.
Yeah,
one hip forward or hand control.
I get just start fighting hands.
Have you ever thought about sleeping with a mannequin arm in the bed so you could?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty healthy imagination, so I can visualize that there's a hand there. But yeah.
So I guess my question was going to be, since your dad was your coach, what's that dynamic like? Because I'm sure I got a number of kids that their dad is their little league coach.
Yeah, I mean, he was always very supportive. He pushed me. People always want to know that, like, oh, your dad was your coach. He must have pushed you real hard. I was like, yeah, he pushed me, but he pushed me in sports. That's a fairly normal thing to push your kids in, right? Sports. I mean, there's people out there who spend their whole lives trying to find Bigfoot. I mean, how would you like to have that guy as a dad? Do you even want to find Bigfoot, son? Because you don't act like it. I hear you saying you want to find him, but you don't do anything about it, do you? You'll sleep till noon. You lost your tracking map. What, you think he's just going to show up one day out of nowhere? Huh? Knock, knock. Who's there? Not Bigfoot, son. Not Bigfoot. It's not how it works.
Are we going to talk about Bigfoot today?
Sure, we can talk about Bigfoot.
Because I got an assistant coach that's probably watching from home right now, Joe Somerville. You've met him a few times. He's come to your show. And he truly believes in Bigfoot. I don't know if he believes in stand-ups or Bigfoot more.
Yeah.
The way we coach lately, I think he believes in Bigfoot more than stand-ups.
Yeah, I mean, I think stand-ups and Bigfoot are the cornerstone of any wrestlers. I do believe big in stand-ups. I coached a little bit of high school wrestling, And I just think sometimes kids, especially if you get advanced, I get it, but sometimes kids just spend way too much time on the bottom looking for that like sort of easy way to get out, or a reversal, or some sort of, they're just looking for some sort of trick where, no, you just got to get to your feet. And I don't exactly know. I know that was the hardest thing when I went to college. When I went from high school to college, I had a few matches where I just couldn't get off the bottom. And it was embarrassing, and it was awful. And I don't know, for like months, me and Darren Davis, who was the weight above me, we were both freshmen, and we both couldn't get off the bottom, I think, against Northern Iowa one time. And it was I almost got stalled out of the match. I got tired. I got real tired. And, once I got tired, I was not going to get untired. And, they were yelling at me. And I was like, I agree with you guys. This is not good, but it's not going to get fixed today, And the coach yelled, I think he yelled, "Get up!" I was like, I don't know if you saw, I tried to do that like 15 seconds ago, and he didn't want me to. But it was a horrible match. And that Monday in practice, it became a priority for me and Davis to learn how to get out from under the bottom. And in practices, you go like top, bottom, out, top, bottom, out. So we would go top, bottom, and then I would want to get out, and he'd be like, no, you're on the bottom again. We went top, bottom, 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 bottom.
For like you never got out?
For like 2 weeks. It didn't matter if I did get out or didn't get out. For 2 weeks, we were just always on the bottom. No rest, no top, always on the bottom. And I remember him showing me a lot of techniques. I don't know exactly when it clicked, but at some point, after about 2 or 3 weeks, I was just like, I think I know how to get out from underneath. And against really, really good wrestlers, I struggled to get out from underneath. But most of the time, I could get out. And I don't know, it's certainly a technical thing, but it's also, I think it's a sort of a state of mind too.
So when when you coached for a few years, did that experience affect the way you coached or the way you talked to a kid? Or?
I think, I usually try to be pretty encouraging, but also a little bit hard on them. Use sort of a sense of humor. We had this kid, Clay Hackerman, he's like a surgeon now, but he wrestled at Stanford. He was really good. He was state champ. But I remember at the state tournament, he was just like, I look back, I know I was very OCD, and just obsessing about one thing. And he had like, something was wrong with his foot, and he just couldn't get it out of his head, and he would just made sure to tell us, my foot. We were at the state tournament, and I remember me and this guy, Steve Lease, who was the head coach, go, Clay, look at the stands. You see all those people up there? You see all the other wrestlers? None of them care about your foot, Clay. None of them. And he just looked at us like, ugh. And then I still remember in the state finals, Clay, he was kind of had the match under control. Yeah. And I think he was winning like 9-2 or something. And he got called for locked hands in the state finals. And
that's a big deal.
Yeah, and you know how when you're a freshman coach, you have that kid who just doesn't understand that you just can't get it. Yeah. So Carl, look, you can't lock hands. You can't do this. So we did that on the state finals his senior year. He got called for locked hands. We're like, Clay, locked hands is this. You can't do that. You can't lock hands. He's like, yeah, funny guys.
Well, he's going to Stanford. He should understand locked hands.
I know he did. I know. Yeah. He just looked at us like, you guys are jerks, man. Yeah.
So you were coaching in California?
I was coaching in Texas, Houston, actually.
So you've moved around.
Yeah, my first job out of college, I was living in Houston at Kincaid High School. And it was Kincaid High School. Yeah, and Steve Lease went on he was the head coach. He had a bunch of great teams down there. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I don't think so your dad was your coach. Yeah. You went through those years. He moved up to high school with you. Yeah. And then I tried on purpose to represent your alma mater, right? Brian Smith gave me this. I almost wore the hat. I didn't know if we were unprofessional to wear the hat. But he gave me a great hat. like great hat. It's one of
Really?
the best fitting hats ever. Has he given you a hat like that?
He's given me all kinds of gear, but I haven't really cared for the hats. to be
Best
honest
fitting
with you.
hat
Brian
ever.
Smith's a generous guy, and
He must have gave you
one of the greatest coaches in college athletics, not just wrestling.
Oh.
Just a great human being, a great coach. But his taste in hats, I don't care for him. I want to see this hat that you have because mine's. He's given me a couple hats. I'm like, Brian.
I'm thinking he gave me my stuff first, and you got the.
I got leftovers.
The leftover
doesn't seem fair.
But so then you went on to Missouri, and like, can I hear a little bit about your college career? I think our wrestlers will be especially interested in that.
Yeah, I started, rough. I think that it's a big transition.
Yeah.
The physicality of college is a little different. I remember, I think it was like one of my early college matches, and they just let you be a little more physical, and the guys are more physical. And I remember the guy just basically took his forearm and bashed the back of my head, and I was like, well, you're going to get in trouble for that. They're going to stop the match. They're going to stop the match, and they're going to give me a point, and you're going to get a talking to, and nothing happened. I was like, well, wait a minute. Did you not see what he just did? He hit me. And then you realize, oh, this is a little different here. Yeah. I adapted, and I missed making All-American my junior year by one match. Lost to a guy named T-Don Fleischman from New Mexico in the blood round, and then my senior year I won in the blood round, and I placed seventh. I beat Sean Bourmet, who's the coach of Michigan in the blood round, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. He was only a freshman. I was a senior. But I was unseeded, and he was seeded. And
Maybe you could be the reason why he's doing what he does today.
Yeah, he's told me that he talks to his wrestlers all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, guys, you need to take every match one at a time, and you need to be serious, because I was the fifth seed, and I was, on the backside, I lost to some idiot comedian because I wasn't focused on my
Yeah, he was marching around.
It's a teaching tool that Sean uses.
He stalled his way through it and played flute and lost to that guy.
Yeah.
So then you went on. You didn't go straight to being a comedian. I think one of my favorite things in listening to your other podcasts is, I try to learn something from everybody, which really is the reason I begged you in here, so I could learn more. Like, you went to the business world, it wasn't for you, and you saw your dream and you wanted to go for it?
Yeah, I don't know if it wasn't for me. It took 10 years to figure out that it wasn't for me. And it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it and didn't learn a lot from it. But yeah, I sold peanut butter and potato chips and other things. Hawaiian
really
Punch,
exciting.
Sunny Delight. It is exciting. I sold that for Procter & Gamble for 10 years. And I don't know, I think maybe you miss some of the high stakes nature of wrestling. It seems like when you're wrestling, you always have like this purpose in front of you, and I think maybe I don't know if I felt that when I was in sales. I was a dedicated peanut butter salesman, but and then I don't know. I started doing comedy. I felt like that was similar to wrestling in some ways, and very dissimilar. This is something that I'm actually very passionate and serious about. So I think probably when I was at my best, obviously, when I was in college, my senior year. That was when I was best wrestler. But I think the version of wrestling that I like the most is when I was sort of those last couple years in high school, where I was in the summers and the springs, I was always out just learning. I was just, if there's anybody around, I was like, hey, show me that. Or, let's roll around, show me that technique.
Yeah.
And, you pick up something. I remember between my sophomore year in high school, I got fifth, and was a little disappointed with that. And I was wrestling with this junior college that was by my house all the time. And I would just go up there and roll with the college guys. And the coach there that spring was like kind of showing me a cheap tilt. You don't take it seriously. You don't envision this is going to be what you're doing the next year. You're like, I might as well, what else are we going to do today? I'm going to learn that. So then you sort of play around with it, and you get a feel for it, and you're like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do this. And then you try it a couple times, and then you're wrestling somebody in the spring where it doesn't mean anything, and, you get it on him a couple of times. You're like, oh, well, this guy's no good, so I'll
Yeah.
try it on him. And then during the the season, wrestling season is a long season. I'm not sure we should make it as long as we do, especially in college. But in high school, I was just, you get bored. You're wrestling the same people, and you get bored. And I was like, I'm going to use this technique. I'm going to work on that dumb thing that they showed me this summer. And I would do it. And then, weirdly enough, it would work every now and then. And then I think in a match against somebody that you're killing, you're going to tech them anyways. I'm like, oh my God, I actually did it in a match. And then somewhere in there's this transition period where you do that technique. I remember cheap tilting some guy that was good and scoring with it.
Yeah.
And this was back when it was a 1 count and you got 2 points. It was not a 2 count, so you could just.
I don't even know that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm old. I'm old. But and then you're like, wow, this is a thing that I do. And then I remember, probably the turning point of my wrestling career was my state championships, my junior year. I was wrestling this guy named Mike Scheller in the semifinals, and he was bigger than I was, and he was the favorite to win the tournament. And I don't think there's a lot of honesty sometimes in how coaches and athletes relate, especially in wrestling, because you're going to beat this guy, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to beat him. It'll be in the back of your head like, I don't really see how that's possible.
True.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers here, and I was a pretty analytical kid. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't see any reason why I should be favored over this guy, And so I just was like, I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to wrestle. All I'm going to do is wrestle for 6 months, 6 minutes, just wrestle, and I'm going to try all these crazy things. And I was never much of an upper body guy, not much of a Greco guy. But, you do stuff with the crash mat in the summers because you're bored or just because that's what you're doing that day for practice. So he takes me down right off the whistle. And I get out, I stand up, I get out. And I'm like, this guy's pretty good, And we're about to go out of bounds. We're on the bounds, and I just toss him. Like perfect hip toss. The guy, feet are in the ceiling. And I was never that guy. I tossed him, and he went flying. I didn't score any points because it was out of bounds, but I was like, well, that was pretty cool, And then somehow, I think I took him down or something, and I got on top of him, and I reeled off like 6 cheap tilt. Man, I was just scoring points like you wouldn't believe, like boom, 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 boom. And I wound up beating him pretty bad, actually. And that's when I sort of clicked. But all that started with just sort of having fun learning technique. So now, you sort of asked about stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
It's the same way with material. It's like, this thing is an idea. People think you just sit down and write jokes. It's so hard to just be like, all right, I'm going to sit down today and write what's funny. I do write. I wrote this morning. But it's more about like, what did I do yesterday? How did I feel? Who did I meet? What happened yesterday that was different than sort of interrupted the continuum of a normal day? Like, what happened that doesn't normally happen?
Yeah.
And you just notice it. And then you're like, if something's different, often you can turn that into something that's funny. And you'll find something. You'll find something and be like, okay, I'm going to go to the open mic night, which is where we practice material. It's like amateurs, a couple pros.
You still do it?
Yeah, I still do it, most Tuesdays when I'm in St. Louis. And I'll just go up there and sort of just try some stuff, or I'll try to just do a new tweak on a thing. And, or now that I work every week, sometimes a Saturday night early show for some reason, it's probably because there's more people there, they're more relaxed, they had a few drinks. It's the best show of the week usually. And there's this thing where they're just such a hot crowd that you're getting an extra 2 or 3 seconds after every joke of laughter. And that doesn't sound like much time, but I think it's like a hitter in baseball where everything slows down. So you're just a little more relaxed, and you're like, okay, I got my act, but I'm going to try this little thing that I did that doesn't, that I've never done before. Or I'm going to try this wrinkle on this bit that I've never tried before. So you do it, and it's like, didn't work that well. But there was that one moment there where I heard those 3 people laugh on the left side. I'm on to something here. And then you try it the next night, and then you try it the next night. And then you're like, wow, this thing's growing.
Yeah.
Like this thing is, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do this every night. And then you're like, you get a tough crowd and you do it and it works. You're like, now I know I got something. Now I know. And then, who knows, 2 years later, you're doing it on a TV show. You're doing it on a late night TV show, or you're doing it in a comedy special or for a comedy album, it's a rewarding feeling.
Yeah.
It's this. There's always something new. I mean, the most thrilling thing for me is like, well, you came to the show last night.
Yep.
There was something I said about barbecue competitions that I've been fooling around with in the back of my head, and it's not there. It's not that great, and it's not replicable yet. Like it worked last night, but I could tell like I just sort of found gold, but I'm not sure I could replicate it and get laughs every night. But I know there's something there, and I can't wait to screw around with it for the next 3 months and try to build into something where I know, like, every time I say this, it's going to work. So I think, I don't know, you follow, there's some similarities between learning wrestling techniques, learning new wrestling techniques, and perfecting new jokes. And I think that's what's the most exciting thing for me. And I think I wish I was a good college wrestler, you know. I wasn't a great college wrestler, and maybe part of that is because I think I didn't have the intellectual curiosity that I had when I was, in high school. Yeah. I think maybe because the practices are so hard, maybe because I was interested in other things. But, I listen to guys like Ben Askren, who's a friend of mine and a guy that I admire and a great coach and a great wrestler. He's a coach. He still just wants to find out new techniques and find out new ways to wrestle. And I think I lost some of that excitement somewhere along the way.
You said a number of things that made me think of questions. I think we've said a number of times, like you did well at the NCAA tournament and you picked up wrestling pretty fast. I have more than half my team this year, just crazy thing, is first-year wrestlers.
Yeah.
Out of 70 people. And I often have to tell them how terrible I was. My dad has a photograph of me and a blur, like you don't know there's somebody else there. And 6 seconds later, I was going to start this joke with, I hold the record at Columbus North High School for the fastest pin, and then be like, but unfortunately I went to Jennings County High School. But I tell my wrestlers about that failure so often because they're like, you wrestled in college and you've done things. Do you ever just bomb on the stage? And what do you do? What mindset do you use?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some rough shows. I think here's the lesson. When I first started doing comedy, I would carry it around with me quite a bit. Just like I'd have a real bad show, and I would feel like that was just who I was. It was a part of me. Like it was, it defined me. I almost felt like when I met somebody, he's like, "Yeah, I'm Greg Warren," and you can probably tell by my face that I, ate it in front of 100 people 6 months ago, and that it really affected me. And then I started getting pretty good. It's a thing that, like wrestling, you're like, well, in most cases, if you have a kid that's a state champion wrestler, he's going to win almost every time. There's not a ton of upsets in wrestling. There's some, but when there's a disparity, you're going to win. And with me, it was like, okay, I got to a certain point, like if there's the right setting, I'm going to have a good show, and then every now and then I wouldn't. Usually when it was out of a comedy club. Usually if it was like a corporate event or something like that, or it's like in a restaurant, or one time I did it with a wrestling crowd up in New York City. There was like they begged me, come do this show. Yeah. There's all these wrestling dignitaries going to be there, and I was like, guys, this sounds like a bad setting. I know wrestlers. They haven't seen each other in 20 years. They're all going to be talking in the back, and they talked me into it, and I did it, and it was horrible. It was like, and it still stung. Like it still stung as bad as it did when I first started. I was like, this is stupid. Like I put in all this work. I'm really good. I should never have to feel like this again. Like I didn't think I had to feel like a failure again. Yeah. But the one thing that I did learn is your recovery time gets so much better. Like the next morning I was like, oh yeah, that happened. Like what's the next thing? Like, like if you risk things and continue to put yourself out there and try and work and innovate, I can't tell you that failure won't sting. It will always sting. It will always hurt. When you lose a match, it's going to hurt. But if you continue to work hard and risk things and innovate, the next morning you'll kind of be done with it. And the reason you'll be done with it is because you're on to the next thing.
The next morning, do you get up and write or practice?
Yeah,
Or
I think I try most mornings. I try to do like a journaling exercise. I haven't been doing it with the consistency that I need to right now, but there's about 5 or 6 writing exercises that I can do. 2 main ones, and I try to get those done. Sometimes the travel gets in the way. Sometimes there's radio or things that I can't your schedule all that. But yeah, I try to get right back to it, and you just want to get back on stage.
It's funny that you said I got up and wrote this morning. When I get fixated with a successful person, I try to pick all the things they do. My wife, I think one of our first arguments, she got mad at me because I spent hours reading about Little House on the Prairie because I saw it was a successful show and I wanted to know everything about they did. And she's like, "Why are you still reading about Half Pint?" She didn't know who Half Pint is. She's younger than me.
Yeah.
So this morning I even thought, I wonder if he got up and wrote this morning. But so I guess my next question was going to be, I've saw you more than any comedian I've seen. We go once a month to somebody, and when you're in town, we go. When you're in another town, we go, Lexington, Indy.
Yeah.
And I can see the journey, like I've seen a joke be a sentence and turn into a 5-minute.
Yeah.
What do you see as your journey as, I hate to say it like this, you're not a young comic anymore. What's the journey going to be?
I think now the journey for me is more the creative process. I mean, I am all about the business part of it, but I kind of feel like there's an outlet now. It used to be like, hey, I have this hour of comedy, and man, I hope Comedy Central or HBO says yes to it, or it's just not going to get out there. Now, you can put it out there. I don't care who wants it. It's almost the best place to put it is YouTube. Netflix is probably a little better if they get behind it. But for me, it's not about where it's going. I just sort of trust, like, man, and people kind of know who I am now. Yeah. So through Sirius Radio or through YouTube, my buddy Nate Bargatze is as big as it can get right now as a comedian, and he's done a lot of great things for me. And he produced my last special. He puts it on his YouTube channel, and Nate's getting bigger and bigger, and a lot of people watch it. So now it's just like, don't worry about who's going to see it. They'll see it. Just make it good. So for me, it's the real journey for me is put out an hour special of comedy every between 2 and 4 years. The last time I think it took me about 3 years. This time, I'm a year since I recorded the last special, and I don't know. You went to the show last night. There's probably about 40 minutes in there that's new. It needs work. It needs some sanding down and rounding the edges, and
we loved it.
But I'm starting to find it, and I'm thinking, well, maybe it'll only be 2.5 years this time, and I know when I have it. So that for me. And maybe that's small-minded. Like, I don't think about, like, I got to be on TV, I got to be famous, I got to be in the movies, I got to be whatever. I am getting older, so I just sort of feel like I just want to produce something that will make people laugh and that I'm proud of every 2 to 3 years. And little opportunities come up along the way. And if you do that, I sort of trust that a lot of people see it, and a lot of people will want to come to see comedy shows, and that's all I really want is people to come to see comedy shows.
I like that because as a wrestling coach, the older I get, I just want to make people. It's not about a state title all the time. It's just, does this kid feel better about himself when he left? And that's kind of the same. I wrote Nate on Twitter. He doesn't know me, but I wrote him to forgive him for going to Saturday Night Live instead of Indianapolis. We had tickets.
Oh, really? I was on that show in Indianapolis.
You were?
Yeah, I was opening for him.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, I was supposed to. It was that week I was opening for Nate in like 2 shows in St. Louis, one in Indianapolis,
we had tickets.
One in Iowa, and then one somewhere else, maybe Quad Cities or something like. And they called me about a week before the shows and were like, "Hey, those shows are canceled." And I was like, "Okay, what's going on? Everything okay?" They're like, "Nate's hosting Saturday Night Live." And I was like, well, that's as good a reason I've ever heard.
The people on Twitter were getting mean, and I was like, "It's Saturday Night Live. It's Saturday Night Live."
Yeah, they're idiots.
So are you on his next one? Or is
I'm not sure what. I don't bug Nate very often. well, hopefully I'll
You
hear
don't
from.
stand there for when he gets done with the show?
No, it's
okay.
like, yeah, man. His people will call me and let me know how that's all going to work out. He's always been great to me. So, but it was funny because that week I was like, well, I've been on the road so much lately. I was like, all right, well, I can stay home for 5 days, which I was kind of looking forward to. I was like, I was like, I haven't been getting my writing done, and so I'll just get a routine going, and I get back in the gym and also start writing. And I was sitting in a coffee shop like that Wednesday, and I got a call from my agent, and Bert Kreischer, who's a big comedian too, giant comedian, he called and was like, hey, we need somebody on our cruise. He was doing a comedy cruise where it was like 2,000 of his fans and 15 comedians, and this guy from the UK dropped out, so I wound up going on a Bert's
awesome.
cruise that week, which was completely different experience, but it was, and a completely different comedian than Nate. But
did he make all you guys stay with your shirts off the whole time?
No, I was thinking about that. I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. But yeah, there's plenty of people with their shirts off and with his fans.
Well, I don't want to keep you forever. I did want to thank you. I try to pick up something from everybody. Last time I saw you, in your question and answer after it. It wasn't in the strict show.
Yeah.
I do love how at the end of your show, you're always interacting with the people.
Yeah.
And I like how much you build up the people before you. So I was going to end with, I guess, a comment and a question. One was just, my comment was, since you talked about that, and I was like, man, one day I want to do that. I've written 136 pages since you said that. So thank you for inspiring me.
Oh, good, man.
That's where I'm at in my journey with that. But last night I was thinking about how much you built up the two guys before you. It seemed like a wrestling thing to me, right? A senior working with the freshman. Is there like any parallels in giving back and treating others and that kind
None.
of stuff?
Let me be clear. Those guys, they're not funny. They're terrible.
Okay.
Don't care for either of them.
Yeah.
I was just trying to look cool, look like a nice guy. But yeah, I don't care for them at all. No, yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kid Eric out of Bloomington, really, really funny kid. And then Willie Griswold, who I've known since he was a kid. It's so fun to watch him improve and get better and better. And it's such a hard thing to do, and it's such an unnatural thing to do. I usually try to say something encouraging if there is something like, I don't know, and maybe it's wrong and maybe it's arrogance or maybe it's like I've just been around so much comedy. But if I don't see anything that's all that interesting or original, I won't say like you suck, but I usually don't say much. But if there's one positive thing or one original idea, especially in a young comic, they could have a bad set and I'm like, hey man, I know that didn't, like the crowd wouldn't get, but that thing that you're talking about, that was really a great idea. And that's, if you keep working on it, that's going to be a great bit. I always enjoy sort of original ideas. And if there is one, I try to say something to the comedian because I got some encouragement for some guys when I was younger. A guy named Mark Gross, who's a big writer now, a guy named Billy Gardell, was the lead actor in Mike and Molly and is on another CBS show, Bob Hart's Abishola. He said some pretty cool things when I was in that period where you're like, I don't know if I'm any good at this, or I don't even know if this is a thing that I should keep doing. And so I try to say something positive. And both those guys, it's really cool things.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to wrap it up, and if you got anything else to say, you can.
I would say, wrestling-wise, I think that the most, because we're talking to, there's wrestlers that are watching this.
Most people are going to be wrestling people.
The most important thing you can do in high school wrestling and college wrestling is your weigh-in face. You gotta walk in. You guys, I hope you're working on that every day. That's got to be.
Did I hear you say weigh-in face?
Weigh-in face.
Weigh-in face.
You gotta be intimidating. Or whatever you are. You need to have that down.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was coaching, at least 30 minutes a day, I put a guy in front of another guy and just stare him down. Weigh-in face versus weigh-in face.
So today, that's That's what we should be doing.
Yeah, I think so, man. I mean, maybe you're the crazy guy. Maybe you are, laugh or whatever. I tend to just be, just serious or whatever. But I would put your wrestlers face to face this far. Just have them stare each other down. First one to breaks does 20 push-ups.
It's good that we wear singlets for weigh-ins now.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because weigh-in face would have been a lot different 1985.
My coach told me that that he literally said this, that I won 0 matches at the weigh-in, meaning I was the least intimidating guy. Yeah.
Is that Roper?
Wes Roper.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And the other, I am going to be, Brian Smith, who's the coach of Missouri, texted me a couple days ago. Missouri's wrestling Virginia Tech on January 2nd in Columbia, and that's, I think, currently number 3 versus 4, maybe.
Oh, wow.
It's with some of the stuff that's going on with Iowa, it may be number 2 versus 3. It'll be a big match, and he said that he wants me to go and be the honorary coach for that duel. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Are you going to run the weigh-in faces?
That's the thing, man, is I think Brian thinks I'm just going to sit there on the sideline and clap and encourage the guys. No, man, I'm pushing them out of the way. I'm going to handle the actual coaching for the match. And if I don't see what I want to see from everybody out there, there's going to be some running afterwards and some discipline. I just want to prepare everybody for that.
That'd be a good episode.
Yeah.
That'd be a good episode. Well, if you're listening to this now, he's over at the Comedy Caravan right there off Bardstown Road. Tonight, 2 shows.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, 2 shows. Since we had Ned Shuck on earlier this week, you could probably even make it to Ned's Bellarmine Nights. It's the Nights last night, remember? We were trying to figure out the Bellarmine.
Yes,
mascot.
my brother went to college there. I should have known that. Yeah.
The Bellarmine Knights have a dual meet at 7. You could make it to his 9:30 showing because they're only about 3 blocks off from each other. Thank you, Greg Warman. I've been asking you to do this for years, so it means a lot to me.
You bet, buddy. Yeah,
Yep.
enjoyed it.